Welcome back to Rookie Pastors, a podcast of casual conversations about real ministry by real pastors. My name is Josh Prince, and today I am joined by Kyle Neiman and Dustin Slayton. Gentlemen, it is good to be with you today, and I want to give us a confessional opportunity. As we get this podcast rolling today, I want you to come clean. So our question to start with today is, what is your greatest style regret from your high school, teenage years? Maybe you want to expand it a little more, but your greatest regret. Kyle,
just one?
I feel like you're itching. Maybe that's why you're itching, because there's so many that you need to deal with and get off your chest. But if you had to pick one.
Well, I'm going to give two, just because one's a funny story. So our junior year and senior year of high school in our Disciple Now, our house at our Disciple Now in the youth group decided to dye their hair all the same color. And junior year, we bleached our hair blonde, and I have pretty dark hair. So that was really bad. Well, the thing was, it was like right before Easter. And my grandmother made a really big deal about everybody coming to her church. She wanted pictures with all of her grandkids. So there was a picture up in my grandmother's house for the longest time of me with just bright blonde hair. And it was pretty ridiculous. I got to find that picture. I got to share that picture with you guys.
It replayed for you for years. Yeah.
Yeah. But the one of the biggest regrets, and I have no idea, this wasn't high school. This was well into adulthood. And my wife met me when I had this style. My facial hairstyle used to be just the soul patch.
Please say a Fu Manchu.
No, I did that as a joke with the students once when I was a student pastor, but just the soul patch. And it's just what I did. I had a hair stylist who said, you should, because I did the whole like half goatee thing. And then I grew my hair out. She's like, you should just go the soul patch. I said, sure. And I held that for so long, so much so that's in my wedding pictures. My wedding pictures, I have just a soul patch and probably kind of longish sideburns. And I regret it every single day that I walk past our wedding pictures in our hallway. I'm like, look at that idiot. Look at that. So yeah, that was a really bad decision. Don't do it. Like, either go full beard or not at all. Or risk the mustache. Yeah.
All right, Dustin, what you got?
I don't know if I can top the soul patch, but
it was pretty bad.
So I have two. Mine will be quick. In middle school, both of mine are from middle school. I actually had hair back then. Had a good head of hair, and
I would hope.
That'd be bad if I was. Yeah. But anyway, I did this little flip in the front of on my hair. I kind of just flipped it to the back, and I doused it in hairspray. I mean, it was like as hard as a rock sitting there. And then I wore my hat right. I set the front of my hat right on top of that flip, so that the flip was underneath. Like, if you remember the Dennis the Menace cartoons from back in the day, whenever he'd wear his baseball cap, he had that little hair sticking out. It's kind of what it was. Kind of what it was like. And so I walked around, if you're watching on video, like that all the time with my head bill sticking straight up in the air. The other one was I played tennis ever since from intermediate school all the way through high school, and that was back in the days of Andre Agassi and his stonewashed denim tennis shorts. And I had a pair of those Nike stonewashed black denim tennis shorts with the built-in athletic shorts underneath that were neon bright pink. And then I wore those things so proudly, way past there was any possibility that they were cool. In fact, I still have them. They're in the drawer. Like, you know how your mom, maybe your parents do this, they like keep it kind of like a treasure drawer of like some of your baby clothes and stuff like that.
Sure.
I've got those things tucked in the back.
Wow.
So maybe one of these days I'll break them out. Who knows? We'll see.
You need to. Maybe they're cool again. You never know. Worth trying.
Doesn't everything
Not
come
that
back
they
in
ever
style
were
at some
cool,
point?
but yeah, sure. Everything comes back, right?
Yeah.
Mine. So I'll say this. I wish I had a regret, and my parents would not let me have this regret. I wanted Jinko jeans so bad when I was in junior high and high school. And my parents would not let me. In fact, my mom was like, Josh, we're not buying you Jinkos. But she took me to Mervyn's and she let me pick out a nice pair of Arizona jeans in place of it. So
Mervyn's. I haven't heard of Mervyn's reference in a while.
No, they were not the same. And yeah, R.I.P. Mervyn's. But the one regret I actually do have, and I have pictures of it, obviously, because it was my senior year of high school, is I had blonde tips like in my hair. And I did it multiple times. I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking, because every time I could be like, can I have blonde tips? And the lady, they would always end up being like a coppery color. It wasn't even blonde. And I don't know why. I think I did it 3 times. And I think every single time I kept hoping maybe this time they'll be blonde. And so I think maybe by that 3rd time I learned my lesson. Like, they're not going to be blonde tips. Get past it. I don't know why I wanted to be blonde anyways, but that's my senior pictures. I mean, they haunt me to this day. 1, because of how lame the pictures themselves were, but 2, how lame that hairstyle was. So, all right, well, good job. Awesome. All right, we have warned our listeners against what not to do.
I gotta say, if you have these pictures, please send them to me. I'll add them to the podcast and the video. Like, I'll cut those in.
I mean,
here's what Dustin, on YouTube. Here's what Dustin needs to do. He needs to go to his parents' house and put those shorts on and take a modern day picture of himself in those shorts.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
All right, we will. We'll see what we can do.
I cannot wait.
No guarantees.
Right. So today's episode, we're actually dealing with a heavier topic, really a heavy reality to pastoring, which is caring for people in the church during challenging times. So those times could include the death of somebody, or someone who is in a hospital, or they're dealing with a heavy diagnosis, or a relational strife. There's all kinds of things that fall into that camp, and each obviously comes with its own unique challenges. But what we want to try and do is give more of a general answer, if we can, some general wisdom regarding these difficult moments that we're going to face with our church members as we pastor them. So first off, what are some practical ways, some practical advice that you can give pastors in regards to showing care and compassion to the church members during those challenging times? Like, what can we do? What practical advice are you able to give based on your experience? Dustin, what you got?
I think for me, one of the things that I say is just your presence. Your presence is a huge deal. We're depending on what kind of church you're in. If you're in a rookie pastor situation, maybe you're out in a rural church, maybe your congregation is older, an older demographic, your presence probably means even more to them than maybe if you are serving in a younger generation, younger demographic kind of church. But sometimes it's not really about what you say or how great a prayer you can offer before the surgery, or at the service or a funeral or something like that, but just your presence, just being there with the family. I remember probably the most, or definitely the most tragic situation I've ever been a part of is some close friends of ours that were in the church lost their son in Iraq. He had been over there for about a month, and I just remember getting that phone call, at midnight, and not going over to their house, not really knowing what to say except just hugging them, crying with them, and I just sat there with them for hours, and we didn't say a lot. I was just there. And then at some point, my wife and I switched, and she went and she sat with the wife for a while. And so presence, just being there with the people is a big thing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I was going to say something similar to that. Just showing up. Yeah. And sometimes I think we've talked about this in a previous episode, or maybe I'm just making that up. Sometimes you can't be there. You're out of town. You're not able to, just schedule of life. Like for instance, we had a tragedy just recently, a church member who lost their infant kiddo, and it was incredibly tragic. I was there at the hospital with them the night that everything kind of went down, and but I knew I wasn't going to be there in the days to come, and so when I was able to be there, I got there. But knowing that I wasn't going to be there, I also made lots of leadership in the church aware, so that our deacons could be there. I made sure I was keeping people in the loop, saying, hey, can you check in on them? And then I was sending text messages and just saying, hey, don't need to respond. I'm praying for you. I'm here for you. And so even if you can't be there physically, being present at a distance is an important thing too. That can be done by sending people, by again, checking in with our communication means, and also asking the next time you see them, checking in with them, because sometimes it's not just a death. Maybe it's just maybe it's them walking through a difficult time at work, stressful time for their family, tensions within the family. Just saying, hey, you shared that with me. Let me check back in. Those are all these care points. So, when you can't be physically present, show you're present emotionally, and show you're present in thoughtfulness.
Yeah. So I want to front load it, and kind of the way I was thinking of this question is mostly because I kind of assumed that would at least be one of our answers is your presence amidst the difficulty. I think the other side of it is how active are you as their pastor in your concern for them ahead of those tragedies? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of times, right, we hear it all the time as pastors, some of your strongest relationships are formed in the midst of tragedy, whether it be a personal tragedy that someone walks through and you're there for them, or if you face a tragedy, as a whole, as a church. But, I think it's being there ahead of time. And one of the big things that I've had to walk through here as a church, and it's kind of sad for me in a way, is to prove to people like, I actually do care about you. Like your problems, although I don't need to know every single one and I don't need to counsel you on every single one. But when you have an issue, it's not annoying to me that you have an issue. And it's not annoying to me. I'm actually honored by the fact that you would include me in saying, hey, I'm thinking through this. I need wisdom on this. I had a guy come and talk to me just this week, and it was rich because of what he's trying to walk through, some things he's trying to figure out. And I was so honored. I don't even know if I said it to him. I kept almost wanting to say it a few times, but it wasn't the right time. Of just, hey, thanks for letting me be part of this, because that's an encouragement for us. I mean, our pastoring is so much more than what we do on a platform. Right. It's what we do in those trenches. It's what we do in those difficult moments that, although it is draining on us at times, it is actually one of the more beautiful aspects of what we get to do, is being there to care for people. Right. I think that's the most shepherding thing that we get to do is to help them when they're dealing with that.
Yeah. So I think that's an important thing you mentioned. Like, I think whenever we think about pastoral care, ways to show care and compassion, kind of what we're talking about today, we instantly go to things like hospital visits, funeral visits, things like that, kind of like health related. But, you're talking about more of a situation of just something going on in life, that's not necessarily medical related or a death or a loss or something like that. We've got a guy in our church right now who's doing a job search, and it's something we've been talking about for a while, been praying about. It's been a difficult journey for him. And, those are moments too, where we're offering pastoral care, even just in a different sort of way. And so you can think about the way, what you're doing in ministry, the way that you show care for people, really involves all aspects of their life. And so whenever you think about that way, it can almost become refreshing, because you don't see pastoral care just as the hospital visit ministry or the funeral ministry or something like that, but really it is the all of life ministry that we get to offer that care to our church members.
So let's look out from just our spot and the natural responsibility that's put into pastoring as far as our member care side of our job. Looking to other people and bringing them into this process. One of the things that I'm trying to process through right now, a book I'm reading on discipleship. And one of the big things that the author is spotlighting is, for a lot of people, they actually boil down the pastorate to, you are on call for me 24/7, 365. That's what I pay you for, and so you better be there for me. And the reality is, there does need to be an availability, probably not to the degree that some of those people have, because it's unhealthy, but there does need to be an availability. I think, though, at the time we've worked within this culture in the church where people think, well, that's the pastor's job. And so we're no longer congregationally caring for each other. We're missing that element. So how can we as pastors create a culture of support within the congregation? Like, how do we empower our church members to care for each other during difficult times? What have you guys found to be helpful?
I think it starts with bringing people along with what you are doing, especially if you're in a church that there is no pastoral care, like response outside of the pastor. If there's no one outside of that who's been doing it, then you need to begin creating that. And that's what you're saying with this question. So when you do a hospital visit, you're bringing somebody along with you. When you're doing a house visit, you're bringing somebody along with you. Even when you're, and this is something that I've been trying to do on our Sunday mornings, like when I'm just checking in with people and like, hey, how has this been going? Like talking to my staff and talking to my leadership, like, hey, so-and-so mentioned this as a prayer request. Can you check in with them about that too? Like so that we're all making the rounds. There's 3 people asking them about, hey, how's this going on in your life? Like, and I say that like, man, look how awesome I am. I struggled with this because as a pastor, you feel like, no, that is my job and I'm the one who has to do it. Like, but if this church is going to truly thrive beyond just my rise and fall and my giftedness, it has to be an everybody effort, right? And so, and caring for people as they're going through challenging times, that we have to hand that off. So the way I do it practically is I just try to be intentional about bringing people along when I have those opportunities to speak into people's lives.
I think too how massively impactful that is to the person who's maybe going through a situation. For 3 people on a Sunday morning to come up and say, or 3 forms of communication during the week, a phone call, text message, from various people checking in, and what a great way to not feel alone, like to feel seen and cared for by much more than the pastor. That's a great cultural development. Dustin, you got anything on that?
Yeah, I think it's something that all pastors need to do, and it's one of those things where you have to get yourself to the mindset of I don't have to do everything. Kind of like what Kyle was saying. We actually are just sort of revamping the way that we do that at our church. Since we are a multi-staff church, we developed a hospital rotation. So like for hospital sick visits, those kinds of things, phone calls, checking in with homebound, everybody kind of has their time throughout the month where they do that as far as the staff goes. But we also do that alongside with our deacons. Now, I wish I was better at taking them along with me to do things like what Kyle's talking about. But that's still a work in progress. But one of the things that is important about this culture is, pastor, if you're a rookie pastor, you may not have been through this yet, but I guarantee you, the moment that you are packing your bags to go on a 1.5-week vacation or something like that, that's the moment that the chairman of the deacon's wife is going to get sick and go to the hospital, or somebody big in the church is going to pass away or something like that. The last vacation that I went on with my family, no joke, I had 3 people die the week before we went on vacation in the church. And it's just kind of like, it's always going to happen. I was going on a mission trip one time, and one of like the key leaders in the church, her daughter even worked on staff at the church, passed away like a few days before I went on the mission trip. And there's those moments where if you are relying on or dependent on you being the center, the linchpin of everything pastoral ministry, then something's going to fall through the cracks. But being able to call your deacons, your other staff, some key leaders in the church, and just say, hey, I can't be here. Can you be there? And knowing they'll be there, that's a huge thing that needs to happen.
To me, the biggest thing, talking to rookie pastors generally, if that's the general makeup of who we're talking to, is you're probably coming into a pretty traditional system of polity structure, of deacon responsibility. And I've had to work to rewrite some of that stuff, not forcibly. Like I feel like it's been really well received by our deacons, but it is a shift for them, is to help them understand, like, we've had these ongoing process of like, what does family ministry look like for them and all that kind of stuff. And finally I was like, we're about to get into it in April, is, okay, we know who our widow and widowers are. So let's make sure every single one of those people has a deacon that's going to call them once a month, that is going to try and share a meal with them, invite them to come over to your house or take them out to eat on a Sunday afternoon, whatever it might be. Like, let's interact with them. But then the other side of it is, now not all those deacons are capable or willing to walk into tragic situations. And, that's fine. So then it's looking outside of that body and saying, okay, who are our really well-qualified extremely loving people who can sit there and be with people, who can encourage them, who kind of what you said from the get-go here, Dustin, are okay with the fact that they don't have to say anything. They just need to be there, right? Like a warm body in the room is sometimes all somebody actually needs. So it's finding those people and it's encouraging them to, hey, listen, I'm not going to give you insight. I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm just, if a name pops up or if you're burdened about somebody in the church, let's trust that that's probably the Holy Spirit putting that burden on you. So go and minister to them, go and care about them. I think that that's like, even what you were saying, Kyle, is just encouraging other people. If you see a need, go meet the need. If you see that somebody is burdened or they don't smile or their tone is different than what you normally would see or hear from them, that's probably the Holy Spirit giving you some insight into they need somebody. And so I think it's really more than anything, I think one of the great ways to encourage our people here is to encourage them to be much more sensitive to the Spirit, be sensitive to that prompting, be sensitive to what you're kind of have that odd insight that's coming from something outside of you that's saying, I really need to check in on that person, or I haven't seen that person, or, whatever it might be. I think our people would be better equipped, much more than just dealing with tragedies, to be like, the Holy Spirit is prompting me to something. I should probably go about, pursuing whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's selfish to ask this last question. I think it's really wise for us to think through this, because we are going to deal with tragedies and difficulties with our church. What have you guys found that has helped you to stay emotionally and spiritually grounded when you're facing the weight of all these difficult ministry tasks, stuff like funerals or hospital visits, or counseling a couple who maybe is dealing with the question of divorce, because things are pretty dire? What are the personal things that you found have helped you stay grounded?
Well, I mean, I don't think it's selfish at all to ask that question, because for one, like my biggest failures since I've been in this position are around how I responded to people going through challenging times. Mm-hmm. My biggest victories in this position have been around how I responded to people going through challenging times. Mm-hmm. And that is an emotional roller coaster for a pastor. It is, It is brutal. I had somebody share with me, like, hey, you screwed up in how you responded to this. And I was racking my brain to figure out how did I drop the ball this badly? And yet there are other people in the church who have had an experience with, going through a difficulty, and they think this guy is the most attentive person in the world. Sometimes you're going to drop the ball. Sometimes you're going to hit a home run. And knowing that your actions and people's view of you as a pastor hinge on whether you did the right thing, said the right thing, it wrecks you emotionally if you're not careful. So it's really important to stay grounded. The biggest thing I do is I talk to my wife. I say, hey, I need a hug. Let me tell you what I'm like emotionally going through. I talk to my wife. I talk to friends. I rest in those relationships. And then I find little things to provide levity where I can, to find joy in God's creation, find joy in little moments. So I was telling a friend of mine, and this might not sound like the healthiest thing, but I'm just going to preface it with this, but it's something that I do. I actually enjoy doing funerals. I find a great usefulness in the role of pastor in doing them, but it is heavy. Like, there's no way around that, right? The most prominent funeral home in our area over in Fort Worth has right across the street from it a Brahms. Every time I do a funeral,
I know that Brahms. I got chased down by a homeless lady in a wheelchair at that Brahms when I was in high school. So anyways, please keep going.
What a great story.
Tragedy. Just keep going. It's fine.
But every time I finish a funeral at that funeral home or a graveside service or whatever, I go over to the Brahms and I get myself a small chocolate malt. And, I just, and it is a little personal ritual for me to take a sip from that delicious chocolate malt and just be like, God, thank you that I have these moments. Thank you that I have this sweet presence of you represented in this horribly unhealthy drink for me. But it is a ritual. And so a friend of mine, I'll message him like getting a shake, and he'll be like, "Man, I'm praying for you." Like just like he knows what I like, because I thought like I go to Brahms really often to get shakes. He knows what I'm doing. So it's just little things like that. You got to find a way to stay emotionally and spiritually grounded. Find what it is for you. Give yourself that permission to rest, even when things are heavy. So those are a couple things I do. Leaning into the love of my wife, and then also just finding those little moments of joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
what about you, Dustin? What's been helpful?
Kyle just stole all my ideas here. But
except you get a medium chocolate malt.
Yeah, that's right. I get a banana malt is what I get. No,
all right.
No, I was going to say the same thing. My wife is my rock whenever there's things do get heavy around the church, around the ministry. Although I'm probably more hesitant to just spill on her, even though she welcomes it. She doesn't push back on that or anything like that. But I'm just not a talker, and so that's not really how I deal with emotions and stuff like that. I'm more of an internal processor, and so I've had to kind of make myself get to where I'll just go ahead and talk through things with her, and that's usually how that goes. You guys are a great resource sometimes, just to text and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. I've been carrying this heaviness or something." But those are. I think the fact that Kyle said, "Man, you're going to mess up on one of these at some point." And honestly, sometimes I feel like I mess up more often than I nail the pastoral care area. I think just doing that and just spending time, I know this almost sounds cliche, just spend time in prayer before and after, especially if there is a situation where you just kind of don't really know how to speak into it. Just spend time in prayer before that. Let the Spirit lead your conversation, your attitude, your voice, and I think that's just a key element in all the mess of it.
So this past summer was probably the hardest season of ministry for me in regards to just pastoring as a whole. I've been through tough times and job struggles and things like that, issues with a pastor that I work for or whatever. But this summer, I felt the weight of pastoring in a way that I'd never had. Being a rookie pastor, that makes sense. Yeah, these were all new experiences. But we were remodeling the church, and I felt like I could never rest. I felt like I was always needing to make a decision, and I felt like every time I had to make a decision, somebody was going to judge me. They were going to think I was a micromanager. There was going to be things said about me. I was dealing with some personal stuff with a family member and kind of walking through a tough season with that person. We lost a key church member that summer as well. So I remember the Sunday after that man passed away, I felt like there was 200 pounds on my shoulders. I just felt like the heaviest I've ever felt in the pulpit before. And I grieved. And I think that we should be cautious in airing our emotions. But sometimes we need to grieve with our church. We need to allow them to be, because they're grieving. And so if we put this front on like it's all okay, man, we've put a filter on ourselves as a church. And if we're going to talk about being real and all that kind of stuff, well, no, you're not, because you're pretending. You're playing something down that really doesn't need to be played down. You need to work through that as a church. And I remember that Sunday I preached and I cried more times in that sermon. If you give me a second right now, I'll probably start crying again because of just the memory of that weight. And I stepped off the stage. I went to the side, gave people time to respond. I was really mad because nobody responded. I was like, y'all know, I just put my heart out to you people. And two guys came up to me and just kind of, one of them cried with me. Both of them prayed for me. It was probably one of the sweetest moments that I've had. And so all that to say is there's certain things we will have to deal with on our own, family issues, whatever it might be. But when we're dealing with things church-wide and things that the majority of the church knows about, grieve together, like work through that together. Those tragedies really have the power to bring you together and to set you free in a whole new way, and really set you up for when the next tragedy like that might come around. People aren't going to be hiding in their homes or isolating themselves in their grief. They're going to remember, oh man, we walked through this together as a church before. I know that we can do that again. That availability, I think, is going to be a great source of encouragement to the church.
Absolutely. I'm going to add, as pastors, we need to make sure that we're taking our Sabbath. And a lot of times funerals or meeting with a family or, doing some funeral prep at the last minute, it takes away your Sabbath, because they happen on the service is Friday afternoon, and that's usually your day off, or Saturday, morning, afternoon, whatever, and that's usually your day off. And so if that happens, listen, it's okay to take the next Monday afternoon and go rest, or take Thursday or whatever that you need to do in preparation and rest. And so make sure that you take your Sabbath, because you're not just putting in time, you're putting in emotion and energy and just pouring out spiritual blessings on people. And so make sure that you take that Sabbath rest whenever it gets interrupted by the call of the ministry.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate everyone listening today. I have no doubt that this is going to be something that we've all dealt with, are dealing with, anticipate to be dealing with. So I appreciate the insight, fellas. Hey, if you haven't yet, you're a listener, make sure that you follow us on all the social medias at Rookie Pastors Pod. If you're on X, Rookie Pastors there. And help us get the word out. We know there's guys feeling alone, feeling the weight of pastoring. And so we hope that we can be an encouragement. It's the point of this podcast. And so we would love for you to be able to share an episode like this one or any others that you hear with other people, and even put a little encouragement on there, maybe why it encouraged you. We would definitely appreciate that. But we thank you for joining us. We hope that you have an awesome day. Go love some people. Go love God. Love you guys. I love you guys.
Hi. Love you too, man.
Thanks. We love you too, bro.